All right. Welcome to FAWKES News. We are live, brought to you by factormeals.com/Wolfpack50OFF for 50% off free shipping on your first order. And we also have ghostbed.com/Wolfpack 10% off across the board. Plus, they have dropped the prices on everything, including that Ghost Bed Queen bed, which is, I mean, they've reduced that thing by like $600. So now is the time to grab you a ghost bed. Listen, all in time for a lot of things. The tariffs have worked magically. They worked. What? We're going to talk about it today. But like, listen, I just saw a thing on my phone right now from a buddy of mine who says the tariffs for the next couple of weeks that they've been lifted over on China, like has skateboard decks. And you guys know how attached to skateboarding my family is. Are at an all-time low, and so all the wholesalers are stocking up on as many skateboard decks as possible. So again, is the mainstream media going to cover this fairly? Probably not. But it's almost as if like us here at FAWKES News could say, we told you so. We always say, like, just wait and see. And whatever the mainstream media, the more emotional they are about something, the less true that something is that they are talking about. Meaning, if they say something is the most important thing, it's probably the least important thing. There's something more out there. And that's why I take so much pride in FAWKES News. But today I am joined with Jason Kiefer from One More and I'm Out of Here podcast. They cover all sorts of news and variety. So it's always good to be teamed up with him. Deadleg is over in Pennsylvania. I will be heading that way tomorrow. And they are there for the big conference there with firefighters and lights and all these other things. I'm going there for something totally different. My children, three of my sons, are skateboarding. We're, some of the best skateboarders on the East Coast under 13 years old are joining together from across the East Coast, from Kentucky, Florida, Pennsylvania, North Carolina. These guys are coming together, and they're going to shred for like 4 days, and they are going to stay in this big bunkhouse, and the parents are going too. And so this is just, we're going to leave for that tomorrow. So I pre-recorded Failure to Stop's podcast where we covered a case out of Newport. So you guys are going to love to see that. It comes out on Friday. Also, we've been recording for Santana True Crime that's on this network, and as well as the Free Holdsclaw Project. So lots going on here this week. A lot of news coming out with Pig Latin, A Seriously Funny True Story, the book. So we've been in a lot of meetings. Quickly, because of the fans of Failure to Stop and the entire network, Pig Latin, A Seriously Funny True Story, a book written by me and co-authored by Nick Palmisano, is quickly becoming, if not has already reached, the most anticipated book release of 2025. And that is all in part because of the pre-orders now. Some people are like, I've never even pre-ordered a book. Why is Eric doing such a huge campaign to pre-order his book that comes out on August 26th? The reason I did it is because I was chasing this coveted, most anticipated book release of 2025. And although I don't have as many followers as some of these other book writers, some of these other famous people, I have a fan base that is a very loyal fan base. Like you guys that are in the live chats on our YouTubes, the guys that are subscribed to our Patreon, coupled with our Discord, coupled with our Instagram, Facebook, those things really, really add up. And where some people have 150,000 subscribers or followers on Instagram, maybe those people are just following you for sheer comedic reasons or whatever, but then they think because there's 150,000 they can say buy my t-shirt and they will get rich. They're going to sell 150,000 t-shirts or 10,000 t-shirts, whereas our following is so niche that it's really remarkable, because a lot of our advertisers, we all go through this with our advertisers, is that they're like, hang on, your impressions rate is like in the top 80%, which is like unheard of, which means that like all my fans, they buy what we have to offer. The reason why is because we've spent 5-6 years only promoting things and being very meticulous about what we promote, and the things that we push. Why do you guys, a lot of the folks remember that you were trying to get me to sell more shirts and more merch, but all the shirts and stuff were trash. And then I didn't want to charge you guys $40 for a real t-shirt, but I didn't want to get these like super cheap made t-shirts where the collars sag and then maybe They're printed on this weird plasticky thing that sticks to you. You know, a lot of companies have to do that and they have to brand, and I get it and it's cheap, but I don't, that's just not my brand as Eric Tansey, is that when I'm putting something out there, I want it to be the very best that I can get you. And that you are confident that if it's a $40 product, that I'm not just scamming you, I'm not shaming you, that you're going to get something of a higher quality. And, you know, that's why it took so long to get Pig Latin out. But I think it's why we're seeing the success. And if you go to Goodreads or any NetGalley and you see what these advanced readers are saying about the book, there's a reason why it's getting 5 stars across the board. There's why it's getting an above average rating from Goodreads, which is predominantly liberal left-wing readers. It's because we spent so much time trying to make the perfect book. And that's why I teamed up with somebody like Nick Palmisano, New York Times bestseller, to give you guys something that was absolutely worth it. It's not just a memoir. This is a comedy, and it's something that we took a lot of time in. Each chapter, each paragraph, none of it was rushed. It was all just artistically and just with all of our heart, mind, like everything that we had in us, we gave it to every chapter. And I think that's what makes the book super special. But we have a really big show for you guys today. There's a lot of things and then the news that I think it's important. And the right is starting to act like the left. Right-wing media is starting to act like the left-wing media. Left-wing people are just as aggravated as right-wing media. It would be easier to say, see, I told you so, leftists, how does it feel? But I don't think that makes the world a better place. I don't think playing the whole tit for tat is a safe bet. I don't think it makes the world, it definitely doesn't make our country, it doesn't make our relationships with each other better. Being truthful, being honest, being objective is important, and we do what our politicians encourage us to do. Our politicians are kind of like our parents, and so that the way that they lead us and the way that they raise us, for lack of a better term, is how we are going to behave as children of this society. And we are acting more and more like children in this society, and that's because we are products of what we've been brought up by. We are we are being reaped of what has been sowed. And so when we have a whole bunch of politicians left and right acting like children, the children are going to then be raised how they've been raised. And I don't think that's a good thing. I don't think our politicians are in a good place right now. And it's definitely putting us as a society not in a good place. So we got a lot to talk about today. Let me bring in our special guest here, Jason Kiefer from One More and I'm Out of Here podcast. How are you doing this morning?
Good, brother. How are you?
I'm doing great. A lot on my plate right now. Yeah. Trying to get through the day's meetings, been podcasting since the wee hours of the morning. And if you've never traveled with 3 kids who are going on a 4-day adventure, it's not as easy as you would think, right?
I can only imagine.
You know, there's a lot that goes
when
into
Jill travels with me, it's like traveling with 3 kids, but whole different reasoning.
Yeah. So, and we're going with a camera crew. There's cameras, GoPros involved on this. We've got sponsors galore that have put this together. So like everybody's got to get their bit. Plus it's about the kids. It's not really about the sponsors, but the sponsors make it possible. So you got to make it about the sponsor. Right. And so like all these dads who have never met, who are now going to be staying in this lodge together, taking these kids on this crazy skate adventure across Pennsylvania. There's so many little details that we're all having to just piece together on top of doing the podcast, on top of doing the news, on top of the book release, on top of doing the audio book, which is coming out. It's just like, do you ever feel like sometimes you have so much on your plate that maybe we just don't do anything? We sit on the couch and just say, fuck all of it. Have you ever been there?
Yeah, absolutely. Just check out for a day and see how it feels the next day.
Yeah. Like I know my lawn needs mowed. It's terrible. It's really bad right now. But like it's just, there's so much other than just fuck it, you know, maybe that's not the right, maybe that's not the right attitude.
Sometimes you have to control alt delete, man.
I know. Yeah. I'm very close. I'm hoping though, that once we get on the road, because this is all about my kids and I'm so proud of them and they've earned this moment that I really do. Like, I'm going to make it all about them and I'm going to make it special. This is like a Disney World style trip for them. And they've worked really hard for this, the skateboarding trip. And so we're going to try to make it as much about them as possible and just make it special, and everything else will work out. The lawn will get itself mowed and, all the other things will happen. We just have to, it's sometimes you just have to be here now and you have to go all in on that one thing. And so, I'm going to go all in on them, and that'll be exciting. But here's what's going on around the news. And this is very scary stuff. And I want to talk about it. Thanks for being in the live chats, by the way. Bone Cold, Mer 530, Low Ren. And, I'll get to you guys later. And hopefully you guys, more people in the chats, as the chats begin to grow, you guys will be able to weigh in. And I'll do a bigger chat shout out here as the chats grow later. But right now what we have is, we remember that the left was, maybe the left started it. I don't know who started it. I don't think it really matters. But if you're on the right, you will absolutely remember that when the left was taking things out of context and they were making things hyperbolic and they were distorting the true definition of things and they were distorting the truth of the matter. And we're seeing this in the Summer of Love. We've seen this in court cases. I hate to reference it all the time, but Breonna Taylor case was a bit, the Michael Brown case. When we start to take things that didn't actually happen and we pretend like they did happen, and we don't take a minute to actually tell the objective truth, and instead we tell the emotional truth, we create a lot of division and a lot of diversity on behalf of politics. And it's been working out because the Democrats have been playing this game for so long. They did it with the insurrection, right? Like, they took things that we knew were not an insurrection. Any normal objective person would say, like, no, it was bad, it was ugly, but it wasn't insurrection. And though that they held people in captivity, they held people in solitary confinement, they held people for much longer than any time under the pretenses and the basis of an insurrection, which was just this game, a political game. This was not justice. This was, in fact, an injustice. And now the right is doing it. And then obviously they politicized the justice system. We saw the DOJ with Project Veritas. We saw it with the Ashley Biden diary, where they weaponized the DOJ. And they said, like, anybody that's going after this Ashley Biden diary, which we know to be true, we know to be real, let's punish them so that nobody else makes that mistake.
Yeah. It's same thing with the Hunter laptop. All of that stuff.
Right. Because, and even you on a smaller scale, right? Even if you try to talk about the Hunter laptop, you as a civilian try to talk about on social media, what happened to your social media account? We lost a monetized account with over 500,000 subscribers on it.
Yep.
Without warning.
You get put in jail.
Right. And same with COVID, right? Like, we knew ivermectin. When you call things like ivermectin a horse dewormer and you're hyperbolic about the uses of ivermectin, what happens is that, one, you look like a fool later on down the road, but also, like, you were an accessory to people dying. I have a friend who died, whose wife begged for monoclonal antibodies, who begged for the use of ivermectin. And the VA said, if you bring it up again, we will remove your husband from the VA, period, and he will get no help. He died in the VA on a ventilator. And now we know that death on that ventilator was inevitable. And they could have tried anything but that, and they chose not to, because of the hyperbolic nature of politics, because of the politicizing of pharmaceuticals, of just about anything, right? The government can politicize anything at this moment and retard the entire situation. And again, it's a huge injustice. And now the right wing is doing what the left wing did, and I'm not for it, Jason. I don't agree with the right wing. And the first of this example of this is the cocaine thing that we see happening on with the French president Macron on a trip from Germany, and they're on the thing. And now the hyperbolic right is trying to make what is obviously and objectively, more probably than not, a tissue paper on a desk. They're trying to make it something it's not. And what it makes is that it makes a whole other side go, you guys are so stupid.
Right. Exactly.
So then when you do say something that's actually true, they're not going to believe it. And then we go in the same week, we have this body slamming, quote unquote, incident at the ICE facility, which is not, objectively, it's not a body slamming incident, and it's not an insurrection incident, although it is a bad incident. We've now made an entire majority of people, 50% plus of people that voted against, or 49%, 48% that voted against your cause. They're now seeing how stupid you are. And you could say, well, you did it to us. But at the end of the day, now you have both sides. Now we don't know what to trust. And that's been the whole point of FAWKS News, by the way, is because you don't know who to trust. And now we have both sides doing this. And it proves our point on independent journalism here on Fox News. This is the point. This is why we exist, to give you an objective look at what's going on in the media. So let me start off with this piece here where the far right, or what the left would believe to be the far right, the Trump party, the party that I kind of align myself with, this Trump party, is being hyperbolic and ridiculous. And it's embarrassing because this is not, in my opinion, maybe I'm wrong and you guys want to debate, but this is not a cocaine bag. And if we look at it objectively, it would be fun if it was a cocaine bag, but it's just not. Let me play the video for you. The real video, not the edited video, not the enhanced to make it look like we want it to look like video, but let me just play you the real video.
It's a lot more. I'll be back in Poland.
And through my bathroom, huh?
For audio listeners, they're in a cabin on a business cabin on a train, and there is a white tissue paper that some people are calling a bag of cocaine next to a glass of water. Okay. And so that's what the big focus is here. So I'm going to play this. It's only about 30 seconds. So for your audio listeners that can't see this, you can go over to YouTube, pretty much find it anywhere, or hit the link in our description. You can watch the video. So here we go. Let me play in its totality. For your audio listeners, I apologize.
It's a lot more. I'll be back in Poland.
And through my bathroom, huh?
It's literally. We came through Germany.
Yeah.
And then we made it to France.
Bedroom and
we got through the border.
Right.
Make the photo and after that it will be a lot of a drink.
Yeah.
Super.
Yeah.
Tout le monde va bien.
Okay, so for starters, if that was a bag of cocaine, that would be a very large bag of cocaine for three old guys on a business trip, on a subway. You know what I'm saying? Like, it would be something that you don't really necessarily need to take out of your pocket for any reason. You definitely, with all the reporters and the clicking and the clacking, it's not something you would put on the table. So that's one indicator that it's not a bag of cocaine. Does it look bad that they all get very silent? I mean, sure, maybe, but they all sat down together at the same time after having these very fake, oh, it's good to see you. It's good to see you. You don't play the political game. And then they sit down, they're like, okay, like, we're ready to get started. Obviously, it's unsettling to have your snot rag on a table. It's kind of gross. Right. And if I realize that my snot rag, and I'm the president of France, is on a business meeting table in front of a whole bunch of cameras, I too would be embarrassed. And I'd be like, whoopsie daisies.
Yeah. I'm gonna grab Mur 530's comment real quick. It's
Go
exactly
ahead.
what I was getting ready to say. Was he said, they got silent for the pictures. We all do that if you think about it. Now, when I first saw this, I was laughing my ass off just because I think Macron, I think he's a little bit odd anyway. I just found it amusing. But when you're a dignitary and you're going to have pictures taken and they're going to go all over the place, yeah, why would you not pick your snot rag up discreetly and just kind of hold it? But then everybody gets quiet and you hear the shutters of all the cameras, and I don't know how many photographers were in there, but it sounded like a decent amount for that small area. All you heard was, we all do the same thing at kids' birthday parties, whatever. Somebody's like, hey, ready? 1, 2, 3. And everybody, does whatever. That's just a natural reaction. Now, do I like some of the funny things and the memes that have come out about it? Sure. Why not? Just because we need some entertainment, these days. But if you're objective and you can sit there and look at it and be like, yeah, that's not, and even if you've been around a bag of cocaine, that's not a bag of cocaine.
Right. I mean, one of the big indicators for me, and I don't even want to play this fucking game, but there's like a very delineated, like straight edge at the very bottom. I could go ahead and like pause it to you and show it to you. If it's a raggedy bag of cocaine, if you can see where the blue folder is, that's a straight line. Like if that was a bag of cocaine, that wouldn't be a straight line. And by the way, nobody patties out. I've never gotten a flat pattied bag of cocaine out of somebody's pocket as a law enforcement officer who dealt with cocaine almost on a daily basis. An 8-ball of cocaine, which that's about the size of an 8-ball, maybe a little less. It's probably about an 8-ball. If that was a real bag of cocaine, that would be an 8-ball. It would normally come in a ball. That's why they call it an 8-ball. People don't just sandwich patty that into some kind of, and if it was a square bag, it would have been a zippy lock bag and it would have maintained a full square all the way around. That's definitely more of an indicator that it is a tissue paper. And the only reason you want it to be cocaine is because you are in opposition of that political party and you're trying to convince yourself in any way, shape, or form that that is a bag of cocaine, which 10% chance that's a bag of cocaine.
Right, exactly.
Because I do believe that those guys probably do cocaine. I wouldn't doubt it. I would say there's an 80% chance that they dabble in cocaine, but I think there is a 10% chance or less that that right there is a bag of cocaine. Also, they have the straws, the stirring straws inside their glasses. Those are the same stir straws that I use at my distillery, and it's a rocks glass. So now you're going to try to make that into something that you snort cocaine off of with, you know, that's, and also, you know, I've been accused of in my early days of podcasting, where my nose ran a whole bunch. Cause when I first started podcasting with Mike, the cop was like right in the middle. It was April. So it was like right in the middle of pollen season. And so I was doing this a lot because I hadn't trained myself to not do it on podcast. And all these people were like, is TANSEY on cocaine? He sure does play with his nose a lot. His nose is bright red because my nose has always been bright red. And so, but the people were like, yeah, he does coke, you know, and I've even gone on the road with the drinking bros and had fans offer me cocaine. And they're like, dude, you fucking, there's no way you don't do coke. And I've never done it in my whole life. I've never even tried it. So I know what it's like to be, you know, to have somebody to try to nitpick you. I've also had somebody go through my children's Instagram, and one lady went in gross detail about how my kids have been sold out to Satan, because my one child had a Thrasher shirt on that had a pentagram on it. We don't wear that shirt anymore because I didn't even really recognize it. It was a Thrasher shirt. And if you've ever read Thrasher magazine, like, is a very, like, they have a lot of Satan innuendos in that magazine. But then my kid was wearing red socks, toy machine socks, and they had said that there's a whole red socks conspiracy about pedophiles. And then, like, you know, then my son was like doing one of these, and they said that was a sign. And it's like this lady was fully convinced, and I was in her DMs like, hey, listen, I'm a Christian. I believe in Jesus. We homeschool, like, really like that. And she's like, no, you're not. And like, I know, it's like she is fully convinced in her mind that my kids are satanic, part of some kind of satanic cult in Hollywood. And there's nothing you can do to fix crazy people. And I think in this argument here is really kind of feeding those mentally unstable people. And it's almost making mentally stable people question themselves like, well, maybe that is a bag of cocaine. Maybe it's not. It's not a bag of cocaine. This is a stupid argument. You would not be having, if this was a picture of your parents on a subway train, you would not be having this discussion. You'd be like, my mom doesn't do coke. If she does do coke, she doesn't do it in the public like that. That's most likely, more probably than not, a tissue. The only reason you're not giving that benefit of the doubt is because you don't like this guy.
My mom's a professional. She does off a toilet seat, damn it.
And Blonde Beard says, yeah, I don't care what it is, but your arguments are just speculation like all those. Well, I kind of believe in like an innocent until proven guilty type scenario. And I think that and this is where Blonde Beard, it matters in media. I don't care if the argument's happening on TikTok or Instagram. That doesn't matter. But if you consider yourself to be a real media outlet and your argument is that it is a bag of cocaine and you're adamant that it's a bag of cocaine and you're fighting for it on a major network TV, it's not plausible. That's not, the evidence doesn't show. There's more evidence that shows it's probably not cocaine. And so therefore, if you were objective, your argument would be that it is probably not cocaine. That would be your argument, but it's not, because you're trying to politically sway things. You're trying to discredit another person. And then we're going to move on, Blonde Beard. And I hope you stick around to see where I'm moving on to, because it does matter in media, because then you have something else that happens, like we're going to show you next, where you have a body slamming incident, quote unquote, right? But it's not a body slamming incident. But here's what's going to happen is people are going to go to jail for this. People are going to be held accountable for it. And the other side's going to want to fight on behalf of it, rather than doing what's reasonable, what's objective, and saying it was an assault. It is a form of assault. We're not going to exaggerate this form of assault, and you're going to get what everybody else would have gotten, which is a fine. Because I promise you, you do not want to live in the world where law enforcement is black and white. You don't want to live into that world. There is always a gray area. I don't believe in a zero tolerance. That is a scary world to live in, meaning that if I kill somebody, if I punch you in the head and you hit the ground, it's automatically murder and I go to jail for the maximum sentence of 30. You don't want to live in a world like that, because there needs to be a trial. There are reasons. This is why I hit him. This is where the emotional, this is where the accident happened. This is what I didn't know and what I did know. And it has a big, so, it has a difference between you doing 12 years in prison versus life in prison. Like you want to live in a world where everything needs to be explained, but we don't want to live in a world where we are hyperbolic and retard everything. We really should just live in a world where we want to have an objective truth. Like, yes, this guy punched him, and yes, he died. But the fact that he didn't die because of racism, he didn't die because of this, he died because he lived a life on cocaine. He was threatening this person, and this person punched this, and the person doesn't have this kind of training versus that kind. And we paint a whole picture, and then we decide as a society what the punishment should be, versus having this argument of these very hyperbolic scenarios. I go back to the George Floyd. Like, why did the media need to tell you that there was enough fentanyl in the system to kill 400 elephants, where the other one was saying there was zero fentanyl in the system? Why can't we just say that he was on the truth, which was the toxicology report says that he had fentanyl in his system up until, what was it, like 10 or 11 o'clock at night?
Yeah,
and so
that
fentanyl would have worn off by like 2 o'clock in the morning. And so by 6 in the morning, he was, probably more likely than not looking or needing more fentanyl, which was leading to that type of behavior that was in his car. Like, what's the problem with letting a society know that truth instead of the hyperbolic truth that media tries to give you, which is the 400 elephants or the zero?
Yeah. I mean, you're hitting the nail right on the head there, because, and you've talked about it, in past shows, where you scour the internet looking at all different sources. You don't stick to one source. You go to mostly the off mainstream sources, but you also you try to fact check as best you can, but what are you fact checking against? So they try to control you. And if you get stuck in that rut, and I've been guilty of it. I mean, it's no secret, the way that I lean, way toward the right. I don't think that I'm complete right wing. I'm objective though, and I'll go to CNN or I'll go to these other news outlets and see what they're saying. And some of these stories that we're talking about, completely different.
I want to see the media bring like a fucking coke dealer up. Like, I want to see the news be like, all right, so what I'm bringing on right now is an expert. He actually sells coke. He's been arrested 18 times for selling cocaine. Does this look like a bag of cocaine to you? And the answer is going to be no, because I've handled so many bags of cocaine, and not one bag of cocaine I've ever handled looks like that.
Exactly.
By the way, people take a lot of pride in packaging their dope. Sometimes, like the twists, the little twisties on the zippy bags, the zippy corners. I mean, they keep them nice and tight. They don't like to have creases in them. That is one thing that I've always noticed, is that Coke dealers always have very unique packaging, especially like the better the Coke, the better the packaging is. I have seen, really good high-end expensive methamphetamines put in various, instead of it just being in a pill bottle, it'll be like in one of like a green or red pill bottle. It's like, wow, where did you even find a red pill bottle like that? I always see the nasty, shitty, like putrid orange ones, Yeah. It's like they always go a little above and beyond, because they if you've ever busted like a weed, like a real dealer that deals in like roofies, heroin, like where they have the gambit, where they have like ecstasy, Molly and stuff like that. Like when you go in there, usually like high-end like townhomes or something like that, dude, like they have tackle boxes, like very well organized tackle boxes. They have drawers. Like the drawers are usually pretty organized. Even if you go into a trap house that's shitty, like they have like some kind of weird, they actually have like a rhythm to their madness if they're selling something other than fake Coke. Now you go into a trap house and they're just selling, like cut fake Coke because they're amateur hour, and that's why they're getting raided. Obviously it's a little bit more disgusting, but let me tell you what, the president of France on this really luxurious, train here with all these other elites, they're not going to the trap house and buying shitty trap weeds.
Yeah. They didn't just hit it in the train station real quick.
Right. And this is where this matters, because it matters to me, because there was Daniel Holtzclaw sitting in prison for 200 years because of hyperbolic lies from the media, complete lies from the media, known lies from the media. They have the 911 audio. They play you the suspect. The witness. They play you his testimony that he gives to the news, and they don't play you what his actual 911 audio was. And if they played both of those, it would be obvious that this guy's one, a liar, two, he's a very terrible human being, and three, that that whole part of the case is thrown out, which then makes the whole rest of the case thrown out. But the media only showed you what this guy told the media, and they never play you his 911 audio, which is 100% the opposite. And it's very dangerous because now you have somebody sitting in jail for 200 years. And it's easy for somebody like Blonde Beard to say, well, that doesn't really fucking matter. I don't care. It's just speculation. Like, you should care, because what if this happens to you? What if you show up to a protest and you are now politically persecuted and you are in solitary confinement? Now, maybe you don't protest. I don't protest, so that doesn't bother me, but it doesn't mean that it isn't your fundamental right. Let's say that you get caught with a firearm, right? Let's say that you are driving down the road in Jacksonville, Florida. Let's say you're going down Jacksonville, Florida, and that you know that there is a famous a chicken wings restaurant in Florida, and you want to go eat chicken wings at this particular place. And so you're driving through Jacksonville, Florida, and you go through a school zone. And unbeknownst to you that you're even in a school zone, because you're so hyper fixated, you just drove 6.5 hours, and you've got a car full of 5 kids, and they're screaming, crying, and they're hungry because it's like 2:00 in the afternoon, but you didn't want to stop on the way to lunch because you don't want to spoil everybody's appetite for the hurricane wings. And so now you're driving. This is a true story, by the way. And you get pulled over in a school zone, and they ask for your license and registration, and you happen to have a gun inside your center compartment. And you're like, I don't have a Florida concealed carry license. I have a gun in here, and I'm in a school zone. Now, I'm just going to pull out this license registration. I'm going to shut that door real quick so the cop doesn't see the gun. But my point is that you don't know what can happen and when it can happen. Let's say that cop saw the gun. And then Eric Tansey, podcaster, comedian, author of Pig Latin, Seriously Food Story, was caught carrying a gun on school campus. What makes you think that Eric can carry a gun on a school grounds? He was on school grounds with a gun. And hyperbolic media paints this picture that I went on school property with a gun, when that's not the truth. The truth is that I was in a school zone, but I wasn't at the school. And I didn't have any intention of bringing this gun onto school grounds. I had every intention of traveling from North Carolina all the way down to Florida to meet my brother, who is a school teacher of the year at this famous chicken wings restaurant, to go have chicken wings. So it does matter, because then you could find yourself politically persecuted by the media, and now you are being charged with carrying a gun on school campus in front of a jury when you know you never carried a gun on the school campus. So it matters. It matters if you get arrested on public property versus private property. It matters. So let me play this next video clip for you. Although I like to see it happen, Blonde Beard, it makes me smile, because they did this to the Trump supporters, but now the right is doing it to them, which is going to be a very long and dark road for everyone. And that is not justice. All right. Let me be very clear. That is not justice, and it's not a justice system that you want to live in. Let me play the clip for you, and it's tired.
They're at the facility.
I'm sorry. Let me play you. Sure. Let me play you this. This is from Forbes breaking news. This is a DHS official speaking with CNN's Victor Blackwell. This is her version of what happened. Again, this is what happens when you politicize the DHS, which the left politicized it and armored it, gave them a political voice, political weaponizing of the department. This is what it looks like when the right does it to the left. This is what the left was doing. So left, you were guilty of this too. You did this. Fuck you for it. You did it. Now the right is doing it to you, and this is exactly what it looks like.
That justified arresting the mayor of the city of Newark.
Thanks, Victor, for having me. I'm glad I can be here to actually give viewers the facts. What happened that these members of Congress, including the mayor as well, and a mob of protesters, as there was a bus full of detainees going through the gate, they stormed the gate and actually entered the first security checkpoint. This put law enforcement at risk, and this actually put the detainees as well at risk. If any official, including these members of...
Okay, let me stop there because it's annoying. It annoys me, right? If we're not weaponized, if you don't have a political agenda here, especially if you are a DHS official, what you would say is the truth, exactly what happened. Tell the American people what happened. it would sound something like this if Fox, if I covered this, FAWKES covered this. How about this? If I was the DHS official, because I'm a professional human being, this is how I would cover this. An ICE facility this morning, there was a bus transporting high-level gang members. There was one gang member on here that was the MS-113 verified and has been found guilty in a court of law for a multiple murders and drive-by shootings in this facility. In this area, there's a cartel member by the name of such and such and such that was being transported to this facility. Upon arrival at this facility, there was a congresswoman, a mayor, and several other Democrat elected officials. When the gates opened, they used this as a point of entry, and they took their protest from a public street, and then they moved that protest onto private grounds. And this is where we have a problem, because now this puts law enforcement officers in a very bad position for them, because as you know, that cartel members are the number one, we are on high alert for escapes. Most of the people who have escaped prison have been attached to gangs or to cartels. So this is the moment in which a lot of bad things can happen. This is the most dangerous moment in transporting criminals. And now we have these Democrats taking advantage of that with these elected officials, people who should know better. And they have now entered the gates, and they're on private property. And this creates a chaos and an anarchy, and it has to be in right now. And so we trespass them, and then we move them off into public property. However, at that point, our such and such decided they'd already committed the crime. And so now we went into this arrest. That's how the story should be told, because now we can have a legit debate on whether they should or should not have done it. And I think objectively on both sides, you could say, yeah, well, they shouldn't have used that. They still look bad. But when you use something hyperbolic like we're doing, and we're calling it all of these things and just really blowing it out of proportion, you have the other side now that's not even going to entertain your side. And they're going to be like, no, you're lying. This wasn't Israel. This wasn't a body slam. This wasn't that. And now we have a completely hyperbolic argument going on. Let me finish playing this and you're going to hear it. And then I'm going to tell you what exactly happened. And then, but see, here's the thing is like, these people could go to jail for a long time. And I don't really think they deserve that. And it also just makes everybody look bad on both sides.
Congress want to enter the facility and take a tour. DHS is more than accommodating, but just because you're a member of Congress does not mean you can break the law, trespass, put law enforcement at risk, and storm the detention facility. I have yet to hear anyone on this network actually talk about who is in this detention facility. There are members of MS-13, known terrorists, murderers, child rapists. There are some of the worst in this detention facility. And I'm still very confused why these Democrats are so hell-bent on getting these heinous actors out of this facility when we have the proper permitting. And actually, in that press conference, those members of Congress actually noted the great conditions of this facility that our ICE enforcement officers so bravely operate.
So again, using these hyperbolic terms like so bravely and all these adjectives, she could have put together a well-based argument. Like, by the way, these are in Democrat-led facilities. They're actually funded by Democrats. Like, who are the owners of the private company that actually owns the prison? Why do we have private companies owning and operating these prisons? Let's talk about the detention centers that were put up and funded by the Biden family and the Obama family and BlackRock. And like, let's take a minute to hit on actual key facts here. But instead, we use emotions and grippings and try to say, she's not lying. She's not being untruthful, but what she's doing is she's setting it up for a you versus me type of scenario, and it's going to get worse. And this is, the outline. This is what I'm trying to tell you. And what I'm trying to articulate here is this next part, which is much worse. And it could have grave consequences for folks. It did for people that lived through January 6th.
You said in here today and in your statement that they stormed the gate and broke into the detention center, according to the statement. Was anybody else arrested other than the mayor of Newark?
There were multiple people.
Right. So saying things like storming the gates, breaking in, that's not what happened.
Hot button words.
That's not what happened. And so now we have this huge argument. And the argument's not about that they committed a crime. It's how bad of a crime did they commit? Like, let's just all agree that they committed a crime and what they did was stupid. But at the end of the day, nobody's going to go to jail for this. At the end of the day, because none of it's true. So you're just going to look like a fucking idiot 4 or 5 months down the road when we've done all of this spunning up and playing with people's emotions. And people we're already tired of it. The right got tired of it real fast. We don't even listen to the news. We don't even care what the news has to say. So if the right starts doing that, the left's going to stop listening to the news too. And maybe that's a good thing because people will listen to FAWKES news, or we just become more retarded.
People arrested. And Victor, I think that we should let viewers know there will likely be more arrests coming. We actually have body camera footage of some of these members of Congress assaulting our ICE enforcement officers, including body slamming a female ICE officer. So we will be showing that to viewers very shortly.
You say a video of members of Congress body slamming ICE
That's correct.
officials?
That's correct, sir. It's disgusting.
Okay.
So what do you think that video, if she says that there is a video of them of a congresswoman body slamming an official, what do you think that looks like? If you've not seen the video, what does that paint you?
Right. What is your definition of a body slam?
What's everybody's in the live chats? Let's go to the live chats really quickly. Yeah. Quickly, what is your definition of a body slam? If I say I body slammed Kiefer, what do you picture in your mind me doing to Kiefer? Hurry up in the chats. Let me see it really fast.
Because it's it's.
No, listen, I don't. Yeah, WWII. Thank you, Loren. Thank you.
Yep.
Hulk smash. Greg LaMontagne says exactly right. Like we think of like a Hulk smash. What we don't picture is what I'm about to show you in this next video slide of what they're referring to as the body slam. Let me show you that. Let me show you this alleged body slamming. I'm so sorry. I'm trying to get to the body slamming part. It's so quick. It's so. Right. Now look at the lady in red. This is the body slam. Did you see it? Did you see it, Jason?
I didn't.
That was the body slam.
I definitely was not seeing it.
This is the one that they arrested. Yeah, here it comes. Look for the lady in red. Let me go back a little further. The lady in red. There it is. Did you guys see the body slam there? That is what they are considering a body slam. She was slamming her body into the DHS, her little fat gut. She was slamming it into, and that's not even a slam. That would be a body pressing.
It's almost like
a body press
in riot defense. It was like a forearm, like just a forearm push is what I saw. Like that's the way I interpreted that.
Well, the only thing disgusting about it is her fucking fupa.
Exactly. Maybe you should have buttoned that coat.
Yeah, and Loren, I would even argue that it doesn't look like a mosh pit. Like that's even hyperbolic. Like it's not even at a mosh pit level. This is like a Creed concert mosh pit, like where everybody's just kind of pressing on each other, all emo like.
Emo like.
So Mur530 says there is another vehicle. I have the whole video, by the way, Mur. And I'll play it if you guys want to. But that she's punching him in the back, not extreme, but not assault. Okay, perfect, right? But now that we have said that there was a body slamming, what do you think the other side is going to argue? There was no body slam. There's no body slam. So the majority of people, not you free thinkers, and this is hard because I'm talking to a bunch of free thinkers here. You know, it looks like I'm coming down on you, Blonde Beard. I'm not. You know, you're one of the free thinkers, Blonde Beard. You're asking the question. I don't have a problem with it at all. And so I get like we're all offended because it's like I'm not even talking to you, even though it sounds like I'm talking to you. I'm not talking to you. But the other side, the majority of people are going to be like, oh God, that's like the right is unhinged. The media is unhinged. They're crazy. Like I'm not going to listen to anybody. And then, so they miss the point of the punch, which is a minor assault, that they were being, resisting, they were delaying, and they were obstructing. And so whereas before we would have some kind of fine and some kind of criminal action, now we're going to get nothing. Red in the chat says, I mean, it's what the officer subjectively felt. Yes, right. which is why important that officers are very, not, I remember my Sergeant Tom saying, like, don't write that in your report because that'll come back and bite you in the ass to write it out like that way, to be over embellish something, because once you get caught in that, the jury is not gonna, they don't take well to that. Fox, fuck Fox. I do pay a lot of time to them because they are just another CNN. Absolutely. But not Fox, not FAWKES, FOX.
You got a clear picture.
Let's clear that. But if you want to see the entire video really quick, I'm not going to play the whole thing, but let me play from the beginning, kind of, as you can see.
The largest city. You are here on private property. On private property.
All right, this is the last, I'm not, man, listen, this is the last warning.
Oh, it's Congresswoman. Show some respect. Show some respect.
All her man.
You have no respect.
Listen.
Like, how is he supposed to know she's a congresswoman?
Well, and that's the other part. That's another piece to this, though. It's they were sent to do a job. They're trying to do that job. These Congress people are coming down. I'm not going either side of this. I'm going right down the middle. They don't agree with what ICE is doing. ICE was given an order to complete a quote unquote mission. So you have the disruption, which now tensions are high already. So something like that is going to ensue, and it's like you said, it's a tit for tat type thing. And it's unfortunate that we're here. Yeah. And so we missed the kind of point of why some of these folks are in this facility, why it's important to have ICE, which, it's just really funny because, ICE is much, is very important. And we have people who are killed by drunk drivers who just cross the border. They never do any time for it. And then they come back across the border. I mean, there's been a lot of issues, and America voted mainly on, immigration. So why the left is still trying to push this whole, like, we're for the immigrants thing, it didn't work. And I think the only thing they're betting on is that they want more immigrants so that they can get more votes. But the American people, not the immigrants, but the American people voted that we don't want illegal immigrant anarchy and that we do want common sense ICE and ICE detentions. But right now what we have is extreme hyperbolicness on, suspending habeas corpus and blowing that out of proportion versus showing up to an ICE facility and trying to get into the ICE facility unsolicited. So this is a big deal. Like the Democrats in this are completely acting out of line. This is childish. It is embarrassing for them. And I think that story tells itself, and that we didn't need to use mainstream media to create something that didn't exist. You could have just told the truth and how it lies, and that's bad enough. Yeah. You know what I mean? Yep.
Hey, what is it?
Congressmen are different. Congresswomen are different. Mr. Mayor, anyone that is not a congresswoman or man, step up. It's the last warning. You will be placed on arrest. Don't rush in. Don't rush in. Don't, please. We're at a gate. Back up.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you. Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Mayor. Shame on you people.
They're saying that because he was on this side.
Don't they sound like a bunch of Karens? Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Mayor. You know what I mean? Like, it's just like, it sounds like a whole bunch of fucking Karens. Yep.
That they're
Where's my congresswoman? Where's my congresswoman?
And by the way, you're wearing a mask, bitch. Like, you're not that tough. Like, you're still afraid of COVID. So, and I apologize for the audio listeners. I'm not going to keep playing this, but you can kind of see. But this is not an insurrection. This is not a breaking and entering. This is a trespassing. I do believe that you should charge some of these people with assault on law enforcement officers, but it should be misdemeanor assault on a law enforcement officer, or some kind of maybe not even so much as assault as it would be like some kind of disorderly conduct charges. I think that these people do need to be held accountable for what they did, because what they did was foolish, and they're trying to make something happen. They're trying to put the cops in a bad scenario, and that's not great either. You shouldn't be doing that as well. So I do think that both sides are fake. I just hate that mainstream media blowing this way out of proportion and then not spending any time on something that's actually really, really important, which is this story out of or the tariffs, talking about Trump's tariffs and how the economy or how the stock market has caught back up on itself, gained a couple of points. And then, of course, now the trade deal that was said to be impossible, that we were all led to believe that this was the end, that they had people selling stocks and making real life decisions. The media, which I think has a moral obligation when they know that you are going to make a bad decision based on their reporting for their political involvement, that morally, that and ethically, that is wrong. They knew how this was going to play out. They brought on economists that they picked and chose. They wanted you to crash the economy ourselves. They wanted people to panic. They wanted people to make financial decisions that were going to set their portfolios back because of political gain, because of their guy who's actually doing the things that all of these other presidents said they were going to do and they never did. And I think that's wrong. And here we go. Now we've got a stock market that's rebounding. On top of all of that, wholesale products, manufacturing products have come down on an all-time low. I mean, I watched skateboard decks go from $30 a deck, actually $28 for blank decks, all the way up to $49 for blank decks. And that means if they weren't blank, they went from being a $40 deck that was a name brand, Toy Machine, World Industries brand, now up to about $90. I saw that in real time over the course of 2 years. And now those are coming right back down into that $28 mark. And that's only just because I'm close to it, but look, all the other products that you might be close for, but we're not going to talk about that. It's a much bigger story than saying that some Democrat Congresswoman body slammed, an official one. That's not true. Another great story that I have to get to today is, now I'm going to read this straight up from Al Jazeera, because they're closer to it than we are. So, and I trust Al Jazeera more when they're talking about India and Pakistan than I do America's propaganda media. But did Pakistan shoot down 5 Indian fighter jets? What we know, New Delhi and Islamabad have provided contrasting claims about the incident as both sides attempt to control the narrative over the 4-day conflict. 4 days after India and Pakistan reached a ceasefire after a rapid escalation and a military conflict between them, key differences between their battlefield claims remain unresolved. Among them is Pakistan's assertion that it shot down 5 Indian fighter jets on May 7th, the first day of fighting in response to Indian attacks on its territory. As the battle of narratives takes over for the actual fighting, Al Jazeera takes stock of what we know about the claim and why, if true, if it matters. Tensions between India and Pakistan erupted into military confrontation on May 7th after India bombed 9 sites across 6 cities in Pakistan and Pakistan-administered Kashmir. India said it had struck what it called terrorist infrastructure in response to the deadly April 22 killings of tourists by suspected rebels in India administered by Kashmir. And I think that's an important part, too, is because this is all in response to the killing of 22 tourists by terrorists that came from Pakistan. By the way, that's like the big problem in Afghanistan, and that's where they actually found bin Laden, was in Pakistan. So Pakistan is known to harbor terrorists, and this is a retaliation of that. Gunmen on April 22nd shot dead 25 male tourists and a local pony rider in the picturesque meadows of Pahalgam, triggering outrage and calls for revenge in India. New Delhi blamed Pakistan for supporting the fighters responsible for the attack, charged Islamabad denied. Pakistan, and by the way, Islamabad is where they found bin Laden as well. Pakistan said that Indian forces on May 7th struck 2 cities in Pakistan-administered Kashmir and 4 sites in the country's largest province, Punjab. It said that civilians were killed in the attacks. India's defense minister, Rajnath Singh, rejected the Pakistani claims, reiterating that Indian forces struck only those harmed in incidents. By the way, these territories are mainly terrorists and terrorist sympathizers, Taliban and Taliban sympathizers. So even if they are civilians, they're not like just like innocent farming civilians. These are civilians who are, much like that would be like if you said that the Nazis killed 300,000 civilians in Warsaw. Well, no, like those people of Warsaw took up arms, and fought against the Nazis. So like proudly, and I'm on the Warsaw side of things. I'm just saying, like, it's not, you know what I'm saying? It's not like they just was like randomly.
Not exactly how it reads.
Exactly. Over the next 4 days, the two nuclear armed neighbors were engaged in a tit for tat strikes on each other's air bases while unleashing drones into each other's territories. Amid fears of nuclear exchange, top officials from the United States made calls to Indian and Pakistan officials to end the conflict on May 10th. U.S. President Donald Trump, blah, 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 blah. The cooler thing about this was that it was the longest ever dogfight recorded. And there were, what was it, like 9? Let's see here. On Friday, Pakistan's Air Vice Marshal Ahmad claimed that among the 5 down aircraft were 3 Rafales, a MiG-29, and a Su-30, providing electronic signatures of the aircraft. In addition to the exact locations where the planes were hit, the battle between Pakistan and Indian jets lasted for just over an hour. Imagine that. That's some real Top Gun shit. Right. Ahmad, who was also the Deputy Chief of Operations, told reporters he stated that the confrontation featured at least 60 Indian fighter jets. Among them were 14 French-made Rafales, while Pakistan deployed 42 high-tech aircraft, including American F-16 and Chinese JF-17 and J-10s. Like, that's a fucking cool story.
So I was going to ask you, just because I'm not familiar, being non-military, I'm not familiar with jets. I know the F-16 is kind of an antiquated aircraft, but for us, that's why we got rid of most of ours. But I was reading that article, that you sent, and I was trying to make sense. I don't know the difference in these aircrafts, but it said in that article, and I'm trying to pull it up.
I mean, did you see what they did in the last Top Gun movie with F-16s? I mean, it's not the jet, it's the pilot, Jason.
I know. Shame on me. Where was Maverick?
Well, it would be like this, Jason. How antiquated is a 1989 fire truck versus a 1998 fire truck? How much different do you think, right? So, yeah, if we're talking in mainstream America, it's a huge difference in 2025 in those fire trucks. But you're talking about countries, we're talking about jets that are like 1989 fire trucks versus like 1998 fire trucks. Like, we're not talking about 1998 jets versus 2025 jets. So it's not very antiquated when you look at it.
Right.
Like those jets are pretty, they're not all that.
I didn't have time to look up the different models, but it was.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not a jet expert either, but I'm not. It's not like they were having these MiGs fight like Raptors.
Right. That makes sense.
But I'm not. But this is like my point.
It's
of
an
this
interesting story, though. That's
an interesting story, and it's like I would much rather hear that and about how this dog fit. If you're not, if you're not obsessed with dog fights and jets, are you even a man?
That's a good question.
If you really want to hit a demographic, if you're the news, that should be plastered all over the news. I want to see all of the clips. Yeah. I want to see the movie right now.
I mean, the amount of planes in the air. I mean, that's
okay. So I did I did one of the largest war games at its time. This was been in 2003, maybe. One of the biggest war games of its time took place out in Colorado. It was between Colorado and California, and massive training scenario. And it was 30 different countries. And my scout unit got to be one of the scout units, and we saw a mock dogfight above us up around Pinyon Canyon, Colorado. It was the coolest thing I've ever seen. It was like being in an air show. And there was only probably 10 of us that even saw this going on. But I remember being 19 years old and looking up, and I've been like, dude, if this was a real dogfight, because they were shooting flares at each other and stuff, those missiles that they're shooting are going somewhere.
Right. That's exactly
let's say you miss. That fucking shit's going somewhere. And what if one of those crashes? How do you run from that?
And then look at all the dollar signs.
So imagine looking up in the sky and having 60 something aircraft flying around chasing each other. And just, man, what an amazing.
Yeah, it's impressive.
Time to be alive if you're in the, Islamabad part of Pakistan. But I was they're really kind of being vague about who got shot down. So this is coming from let's see, what is this? This is coming from Newsweek or whatever. Pakistani security source told CNN that 125 Indian and Pakistani fighter jets were involved on Wednesday in an aerial battle lasting over an hour. Dude, could you imagine? Be the greatest show of all time. And what may be one of the largest dogfights in recent. By the way, it is. And if you look up largest dogfight in history, you won't even see mention of this yet. Like they're still like trying to hold on to it because America's got to be the best at everything. It's like, oh, the longest dogfight was in World War II. Like, no, not anymore. Fucking India denied Pakistan's claims of shooting down its jets, but experts note that if more evidence surfaces, it could signify a major operational failure. India was using modern French-made Rafale jet fighters. According to Reuters, it is a very modern aircraft in the Indian arsenal and one of the top line fighter aircraft in the world. India's acquisitions of what was a key point of modernization of the Indian Air Force. Walter Ladwig, associate fellow at the Royal United Service Institute, UK's leading defense and security think tank, told Newsweek the use of advanced missiles and modern fighter jets has expanded the traditional notion of dogfights, once defined by close-range movements, to include long-range scenarios described as beyond visual range. According to CNN, long-range missiles were exchanged at distances exceeding 100 miles. That's close by kind of aircraft standards. In ideal sense, you still might be looking to be destroying your target at multiple hundreds of miles. So, I guess even though all these were involved, they weren't necessarily, in Top Gun style dogfights here. But that goes to my point. Like if you're shooting a missile 100 miles away and it's not hitting one of those 125 targets, what the fuck is it hitting?
Yeah. Where does that thing land?
Bone Cold says, although Tom Cruise in an ancient F-14 Tomcat did take out 2 Russian Su-57s, but it's Russian tech, so take it with a grain of salt. Yes. Bosco says they were just trying to get in touch with each other about their extended car warranties. Perfect.
That's pretty good.
Lorenz says, if you don't sing the Top Gun song when you see a jet, are you even a man? No, I don't think so. If you even hear the word volleyball and you don't think about Tom Cruise, are you even a man? Oh man. Yeah. So anyway, that's the news today. Listen, be careful, man. It's really bad. It's really bad as a society for us to fall into this hyperbolic, very tit for tat style, childish news programming that we are all, and so it does matter. It matters in your relationship. If you're going to be hyperbolic about your husband or your wife and what they've done, like if you're going to say things like you were out all night and they were gone for an hour when they said they would be gone for 30 minutes, that's not all night and it matters. And if you're going to have an argument and you keep saying he was out all night, then you're going to convince yourself that he literally was out all night. When it was like, honey, you said you were going to be gone for 30 minutes, you were gone for an hour. And then let's see it for how it is. And let's have an argument for what it is. And let him be sorry for being 30 minutes late. But if we're going to have an argument and you're going to start the argument off with you were out all night, his argument's going to be like, no, I wasn't. And he's never going to apologize for being the 30 minutes late. And you yourself are going to convince yourself, guy or girl, that he or she was out all night. And we're not looking at the totality of the things. And then we build this hyperbolicness up in our heads, and it leads to like really bad scenarios like divorce or sleeping on the sofa alone and all these other things. It's not necessary.
Yep.
And our highest level, the people that we are looking to be the example of professionalism and of maturity, are doing those very immature things that are going to come down the pipeline, and it's going to infect everybody. So I do think it's important that you pay attention to the fake news media out there, and that you are aware of that. And G.I. Joe says it the best, Jason. Like maybe you didn't know about the 100+ jet fighters fighting over the Pakistani and Indian airspace. Maybe you didn't know what exactly a body slam should look like according to politicians and a weaponized Department of Justice. Maybe you didn't know about habeas corpus being suspended, or that these tariffs are not as bad as the mainstream media made it out to be. And that maybe some of your financial decisions and some of the phone calls you had with your financial advisors, maybe you owe them an apology. And maybe we should listen to somebody other than mainstream media, and don't tell me that the mainstream media, don't tell me about the experts, Because remember, all the experts told you that the COVID shot was the way to go. Remember, all of the experts told you that ivermectin were bad. All of the experts told you that you should get multiple injections of the COVID-19. All of the experts told you that, right? But not Dr. McCullough or Peter Malone, but was it Dr. whatever, Malone and McCullough, the number 1 and 2 of the CDC, who lost their jobs, who went on Joe Rogan, who said we've been the head of pandemic experience. Like, we are the experts. Our resumes show that we're the experts. It's not because the media labeled us experts. Like, we are the experts. And we're telling you that this is bad. And we're telling you that we're stepping down from the CDC because of this. And then, of course, they made Joe Rogan out to be a bad guy. Just remember, guys, G.I. Joe said it the best. Now you know, and knowing is half the battle. We'll see you guys on Friday to Failure to Stop and for our sports show with Jason and John right here in the next couple of days. Until then, guys, cheers.
See